Welcome to the Denver Dollar, a brand new podcast in which we discuss Denver sporting news. We break down the games and we talk about what's to come for the teams we love, all through the lens of a bettor. I am your host, Daniel Shalansky. Without further ado, let's get to it. Now, the Nuggets just finished on today's Tuesday, February 16th. The Nuggets on Valentine's Day, February 14th, finished up their 4-game home series with a win against the Los Angeles Lakers. Anthony Davis did hurt his Achilles in that game. He is going to be absent for some time. We hope that he does get better. But even the fact that the Lakers were missing their second best player, the Nuggets were missing a ton of players as well, including in the second half, they're missing 3 out of 5 starters. There was no Paul Millsap at the end of that game. There was no Will Barton, and there was no Gary Harris. It was a great win for the Nuggets to win by such a large margin. And it was really a capital win. You know, Jokic got his first triple-double in 13 or so games. It was a good win for the Nuggets, and they hope to maintain some of that momentum in their first away game in a while against the Boston Celtics in Boston. Now, some news and notes going into the game tonight. The Nuggets at the Boston Celtics. On the Nuggets side of the ball, they are going to be missing a lot of important players. 3 starters are going to be absent in Paul Millsap. He has a knee injury. Gary Harris is still dealing with a thigh injury. And Will Barton is still out due to personal reasons. In addition to that, PJ Dozier will be missing this game as well. He is still dealing with a hamstring injury. A new injury, just like the Paul Millsap injury, however, is Monte Morris. He is questionable with a shoulder injury. I don't know if he will or will not play. But that means we are really struggling for guards. If Monte Morris is unavailable, expect the starting lineup to look like Jamal Murray, Facu Campazzo, Michael Porter Jr., and then maybe JaMychal Green or Nikola Jokic. We haven't seen what this lineup would look like yet because, again, we have 4 guards that are potentially absent for this game. So our depth is really hindered, but the Celtics are struggling with some injuries as well. They are missing arguably their most important guard in Marcus Smart. He is out with a calf injury. He sustained this a while ago, and he is going to be set to miss some time. In addition to their starting lineup, Daniel Theis will be out. Daniel Theis, my bad. Will be out. He has a finger injury, and he won't be playing in this game. And Romeo Langford is out with a wrist injury that is less significant than the other 2 injuries. So both teams have at least two starting players that are going to be absent from the lineup. The Nuggets have 3 and potentially some of their more important role players in Monte Morris and PJ Dozier. Both teams are banged up. This is really a testament of depth, and we'll see how these teams do. Now, I will say I do like the Nuggets' depth way more than almost than any other teams. When all of those 5 guys I just highlighted, when they are all healthy, I don't know what the lineup will look like because, RJ Hampton has really stepped up. Zeke Naji has really stepped up. I don't know who's going to get those minutes, and it'll be a great competition to see who gets what minutes. I hope that Will Barton does not get as many minutes as he previously did. For whatever reason, Coach Michael Malone seems to love him, but I don't know. He's one of the worst players on the court. When he is on the court, he has one of the worst net ratings on the Nuggets thus far into this season. Now, let's talk about other trends going into this game. Over the last 5 games, the Nuggets have won 3 out of 5. Their 2 losses coming to the Milwaukee Bucks at home and the Los Angeles Lakers in LA. They did get revenge on the Lakers for that previous game when they won on Sunday, and the Nuggets are seemingly, really picking up steam. As for the Boston Celtics, they are struggling immensely as of late, and I think it's all tied to the lack of Marcus Smart. Kemba Walker is a floor general, but he's been doing a pretty bad job of it this year. He's averaging on the season only 4 assists, which is not good for someone who's not generally a scoring playmaker or a scoring point guard. He does score the ball, and he does have a great shot, and he does have a great mid-range, and he's very capable of scoring. But Kemba Walker on this team is not meant to be a scorer. He's meant to be a facilitator with the likes of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown alongside him. So that leaves Marcus Smart to be one of the most underappreciated players. He's one of the most overrated or underrated players, depending on, if you're a Celtics fan or not. But I will say I do love how Marcus Smart plays. He's one of the best wing or guard defenders in the league, and he does have a pretty high assist total. He is, more of that facilitator that you would like to see Kemba Walker be. Kemba looks for his own shots too much, but Marcus Smart is perfectly happy scoring less than 10 points in any given game. So with the absence of Marcus Smart, the Celtics have been struggling immensely. Like I said, they've only won 1 out of their last 5 games. And over that span, they're only scoring 102.4 points. They are really doing bad. They just lost to the Wizards the day before, or the 2 days before that. They lost to the Pistons. Those are non-playoff teams in the Eastern Conference that they are getting blown out by. They have recently fallen to 13-13. They are still, it's kind of pathetic, but they're still number 5 in the East, but they don't have a winning record. They're exactly 500, and that is not what Celtics fans were hoping for after they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year and were hoping to finally take that next step to reach the NBA Finals. I'm not saying that they can't get there, but they're struggling immensely. Those are kind of the important news and notes going into the game. Let's talk about some actual odds. Now, the Celtics are favored in this game, and I'm not quite sure why. Again, they're struggling immensely. Maybe it's because Vegas predicts a rebound game for them. Maybe it's because the Nuggets do have more and, more significant injuries on their side of the ball. Maybe it's just that, it's a home game for the Celtics. The Nuggets, are kind of maybe potentially tired after having a difficult game against, it wasn't a difficult game against the Lakers, but they've played, pretty much a game every 2 days, and now they're traveling super far to the East Coast and playing a game 2 hours earlier than they're used to playing. So maybe there's a bunch of things to weigh in, but the Celtics are big favorites in this game, and I don't understand why. The money line is locked in for the Celtics at minus 121, whereas for the Nuggets it's plus 102. The Celtics are expected to win the game by 1.5 points. That is the spread. They're minus 1.5 at minus 112 if you bet on the Celtics against the spread. If you bet on the Nuggets against the spread of 1.5 points, you're locked in at minus 110. Now, I'm not taking either of those because if I were to bet on first of all, if I were to bet on the Celtics, and I do think the Celtics win this game, if I were to think that the Celtics win this game, I would bet on the spread for the Celtics instead of the money line. You are getting better odds than the normal money line, but still not the three-way money line. And most NBA games don't come down to a 1-point margin. I would bet that if the Celtics win, they win by at least 2 points due to, intentional fouls at the end and the free throw game. And it's just very rare that an NBA game is within a 2-point margin. But that said, I'm not going to bet on the spread because I have no idea what the Nuggets will look like. I do have faith in their depth, but they're going to be tired. They were running a lot of Vlatko Cancar against the Lakers, which is not a good look. They're going to be pretty much on an 8-man rotation, and that 8-man, if Monte Morris is unavailable, and that 8-man rotation will be Jamal Murray, Facu Campazzo, Michael Porter Jr., JaMychal Green, Nikola Jokic, RJ Hampton, Zeke Naji, and Vlatko Cancar. I like how Zeke is playing. I love how RJ is playing. I don't like Vlatko on the court at any given time. And I don't know if we will be able to produce consistent offense with that 8-man rotation. If, when Nikola Jokic sits, it's going to be ugly for the Nuggets. Coach Michael Malone sure better do a good job of staggering where his guys are playing when they're on the court, or staggering their minutes when they're on the court. So I'm not necessarily willing to bet against the spread for the Nuggets. I don't think it's that good. I'm not quite willing to do that, but I do think the Nuggets win this game, and I am taking them in the three-way money line, which I will later discuss. Let's talk about Moneyline Parlays, though. I do think, before that, the over-under in this game is 221 points. The over being locked in at minus 113, and the under being locked in at minus 108. I'm not willing to call the over or the under in this game for a few reasons. I do think that the Celtics rebound. Again, they're only averaging 102.4 points per game as of late. They are going to score more points than that. And they're a pretty good defensive team. They're number 6 in the league, only allowing 109.3 points per game. So a bunch of stats would suggest that the under, going into this game. But if you look at both the teams' averages on the season, the Nuggets are number 4 in the league, averaging 115.5 points, whereas the Celtics are number 22 in the league, averaging 110.1 points per game. So if you add the aggregate of the points that they're scoring per game, then you would have above that mark of 121 pretty easily, but the Celtics are trending down terribly. I do expect a little bit of a rebound game for them, but I don't know if they will return to their season averages. I mean, I don't think, they only scored 91 points in the last game, and I don't think Jason Tatum will only score 6 points again. That was atrocious. He went 0 of 5 from the three-point line. I think he will do better. I don't know if he'll return to a season average of 25.6 points in this game, but I don't expect him to get less than double digits in this game. So it's difficult to say whether or not it's going to be the over and the under. Over the last 5 games, the Nuggets have hit this mark in the over 4 out of 5 times. They only had one game where the aggregate score of them and their opponents combined was less than 221. As for the Celtics, only 2 out of their 5 most recent games have hit this mark of 221 points. So it's, you got one team firing on all cylinders despite a ton of injuries, and then you have one team with a few injuries, but a few important injuries, really struggling as of late. I don't like the combo. I don't know how that will mesh. I'm not taking the over or the under. There is a parlay that I'm willing to take, though. I do think the Nuggets win this game. I'm taking the Nuggets money line plus the under. The reason I'm taking the money line instead of the spread is because I think, I think the Nuggets losing by 1.5 points is equally as likely as the Nuggets winning. I don't think that they will lose by 1 point, and if they lose by 2 points, then the spread doesn't even hit. So I'm just going to bet on a Nuggets win straight up. Forget the spread. I'm taking the money line, and then the reason I'm betting that in tandem with the under parlayed, I'm less confident in to take that bet by itself, but I think if the Nuggets win this game, which Vegas doesn't think that they will, the Celtics will continue struggling. So I'm only predicting game script. I'm saying, if the Celtics do once again score around that 102 points mark in this game, then I do think that the Nuggets will win, and I do think that the under will hit. There are 2 more bets I'm betting on for the game. One of them is I'm betting on the Nuggets in the 3-way money line. That is locked in at plus 116 versus plus 102 for the normal money line. A tie is locked in at plus 1300 at this point, but 1 out of every 19.8 games has gone into overtime so far historically throughout this NBA season. So I absolutely can't advise that you bet on a tie, and Vegas has it at plus 1300. I wouldn't touch that bet unless it was at plus 1980, which would reflect the likelihood of any game this season going into overtime. So because Vegas technically they're undervaluing it because they consider a tie or going into overtime more likely to happen, everything's inversely related. That means that they're considering a Nuggets win without overtime more valuable because they consider it less likely to happen than it actually is. Vegas is Vegas is accounting for a tie too strongly in this game. Accounting for a tie through 4 quarters, I should say, in this game. So I will bet on the Nuggets in the 3-way money line, and I'm also betting on the under for the Celtics at 111.5 points at minus 118. I think that they step it up, but that is less than their season mark. So the Nuggets are they've been really stepping it up. Perhaps it's because they've been playing against some injured, hurt, less than good teams, but they started there. There was one point in the season where they were allowing the 26th most points in the league. They have crept to the number 8 spot in terms of total defense, in terms of total points allowed. They're only allowing exactly 111 points per game. So the Nuggets are allowing less than that mark. The Celtics are struggling offense. They're number 22 in the league on offense, again at 110.1, which is less than this mark of 111.5, and they're struggling as of late. I don't see the Celtics scoring more than 111.5 points in this game. I'm taking the under. Now, let's talk about individual player stats, and then after that, we'll finish the show. We're trying to do it quickly. Again, because there are so many hurt players in this game, there are only 6 players that we're able to discuss in terms of individual player prop bets, but after that, we're trying to do this quickly. At the end of the show, we will conclude it with our coveted tip-off analysis. Again, on the season, we're 16 of 21 of guessing who will win the tip-off, and that is so indicative. I can't stress it enough. That is so indicative of which team will score the ball first. There is no stat like it for predicting which team will score the ball first, and Vegas doesn't seem to take it into consideration. We've made big money this season on which team will score first, so stick around to the end of the show. On to player props. Jamal Murray in this game is expected 2.5 threes, with the over being locked in at plus 115 and the under being locked in at minus 139. I'm taking the over for a few reasons. He's only averaging 2.1 on the season, so he's averaging less than this mark on the season. But over the last week, that's creeping up. He's at 2.3, and in the last game, he had 4 3-pointers. If you want to look at game script, the reason I think he had 4 3-pointers is because they were missing Will Barton, who is another 3-point shooter on the team. They're missing Gary Harris, who can only score 3-pointers on offense. Paul Millsap was out in the second half, and he's a 3-point scorer. PJ Dozier is shooting, 46% from deep. He's a 3-point scorer. They're missing a ton of 3-point shooters. The light is going to be green for Jamal Murray to take more shots than normal, considering the fact that so many other shooters around him are hurt and potentially hurt, just like Monte Morris, for this game. I do expect he hoists up around like 8 3-pointers. All he has to do is make 3 of them. He's been shooting at a better clip as of late. I'm taking the over locked in at plus 115. It's good value, and I do really think he hits at least 3 3-pointers in this game. That means I'm also taking the over on points. With all of these injuries, Jamal Murray is going to have to step it up from points, just like in the last game. He didn't even play in the fourth quarter due to the tromping that was going on the Los Angeles Lakers. He had 25 points through the first 3 quarters, and that's against one of the league's best defenses. The reason he had so many points is because he was shooting the ball so goddamn much, because there are so many goddamn injuries on the Nuggets. Again, he's going to have the green light. I think he scores a lot of points in this game, at least 21 points, with the over being locked in at minus 110. I'm taking it. Another bet for Jamal Murray is I'm taking the over on his rebounds, locked in at minus 134. He's set to get 3.5 rebounds. On the season, he averages 4. Over the last 30 days, he averages 4.5. Over the last week, he averages 5. And in the last game, he had 6. So he's only trending up in the rebounds. He's playing on the court a lot, with a bunch of other guards around him injured. He's had to step it up in the rebounding category. I like him on the over in rebounds at minus 134 of more than 3.5 rebounds. I'm also taking the over on his player special. 28.5 combined points, assists, and rebounds. The over is locked in at minus 110. In the last game, he had 35 combined points, assists, and rebounds. And I think that is more telling than his season-long stats, due to the fact that this was one of the first games we saw the Nuggets without so many other players. So many other guards. I think Will Barton being off the court is doing a number for Jamal Murray's numbers, a number for his numbers. It's really bolstered his numbers, having Will Barton not be such a dead end on the offensive side of the ball. Now, let's talk about Nikola Jokic. He's locked in at 1.5 3-pointers in this game, with the over being set at plus 115. I'm taking the over. On the season, he's averaging 1.4, but over the last 30 days, he's averaging 1.6. Sure, he only had 1 3-pointer in the last game, but the over is plus 115. I love that value. I think he's going to have to play a lot due to the lack of other big men on the Nuggets, due to the lack of just players in general on the Nuggets. Paul Millsap being out will, let Nikola Jokic play. And I'm going to do a little bit of analytics. If you watch Tristan Thompson without Daniel Theis, or however you say his name, he's German as hell, without Daniel Theis, if you look at Tristan Thompson, watching him play defense, he is a great rim defender, but he sags off a lot around the 3-point line. He doesn't like to play perimeter defense, and I think if Nikola Jokic catches it out there and does a little hesitation move and pretends to drive and steps back, he's not much of a step back 3 type of artist, I get it, but I think as long as he looks like he's not going to shoot the 3 if he catches it outside of the perimeter, I expect Tristan Thompson to drop back in coverage, leaving Nikola Jokic with a fairly wide open 3-pointer. I'm using, just the fact that there are a bunch of absent Nuggets players in combo with the fact that he's got Tristan Thompson on defense. I feel like Tristan Thompson allows a lot of 3-pointers to opposing centers, so the combination of those leads me to believe that Nikola Jokic will surpass this mark of 1.5 3-pointers. I'm not going to bet on his points. I'm going to bet on his assists, however. I'm taking the over at 7.5 assists. His assists are finally back, and they're finally back in large. He had a triple-double last game with 10 assists. He's averaging 10.3 assists over the last week. All he needs to do is hit this mark of 7.5, and the over hits. So at minus 118, I'm taking the over. On to Michael Porter Jr. I'm taking the over on 3-pointers for Michael Porter Jr. I'm taking the over on all the Nuggets players available on the BetRivers betting card. Michael Porter Jr. is set at 2.5 3-pointers in this game, with the over being locked in at plus 142. Let me tell you why I'm taking the over. He's averaging 2.3 on the season, and sure, he only had 1 in the last game, and he's only averaging 2 over the last week. But with Will Barton off the court, I think it's kind of a fluke that he only made 1 3-pointer in the last game, considering the fact that, Will Barton was absent. He's going to be getting those Will Barton minutes, and Will Barton shoots a shit ton of 3-pointers. So does Michael Porter Jr. That's his main scoring, way. He's very athletic. He can get to the rim pretty much anytime he wants, but he doesn't. He loves settling for that 3-point shot, and he's good at it. It's not really settling for him. He can shoot over anyone. I'm taking the over at plus 108 that he makes at least 3 3-pointers. Now let's talk about assists. I'm taking the under for him. Or no, he has not listed an assist, my bad. I'm taking the over for him in points. I was looking at Kemba's stats. I apologize. He's projected 15.5 points in this game. I'm taking the over at minus 110. He only scored 12 in the last game, but over the last week, he's averaging 9. He only scored 8 in the last game, but over the last week, he's averaging 14 points per game. And there are other Nuggets players that are absent. Michael Porter Jr. can absolutely play the 4. And with Paul Millsap out, I expect him to get more minutes than he's been getting as of late. I'm taking him over in points, especially considering the fact that he can go off for 30 any given game. I'm taking the under on his rebounds, however, at 6.5, locked in at plus 101. On the season, he's only averaging 6 rebounds. Over the past 30 days, he's averaging 5.8. Over the last week, he's averaging 4. And in the last game, he only had 3. So he's trending down significantly in rebounds. I don't think he gets 6.5, even with the absence of Paul Millsap and him potentially playing the 4 more than he usually does. I'm still taking the under, and it's good value at plus 101. On to the Celtics side of the ball. Real quick, no other Nuggets players are listed due to the fact that there are so many injuries. BetRivers and Vegas does not know who will be starting and who will be getting significant minutes. Monte Morris being questionable throws a wrench in everything. So they only have the 3 players that they're confident will get big minutes in Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and Michael Porter Jr. Same goes for the Celtics. The only 3 Celtics players listed on the BetRivers betting card are Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, which is a damn shame because you bet your ass I would have taken the over on Peyton Pritchard 3-pointers. He's not available. I can't wait for him to be on the BetRivers card because that's a guy that's going to be fun betting on. He is a walking bucket. But while he's absent, we're only going to discuss those 3. On to Kemba Walker. He's averaging 2.6 threes on the season. He's making 2.6 over the past 30 days, 3.3 over the last week, and 4 in the last game. So if I told you his over-under was only set at 2.5, all of those marks that I previously just said are over that mark of 2.5. Would you expect the value to be better on the over or the under? I'm not going to let you answer that question because the clear answer is you would expect the under to have better value considering he's walking in his sleep and getting these numbers. But for whatever reason, he's plus 108 to secure more than 2.5 3-pointers in this game, and you bet your ass I'm taking that. In terms of his assists, he's listed at 4.5 assists. I'm taking the under at minus 105. On the season, he's only averaging 4. Over the last 30 days, he's only averaging 4. Over the last week, he's averaging 4. And in the last game, he only scored 2. He, like I was talking about at the beginning of the show, he is not as good of a facilitator as Marcus Smart. It pains me to say it because I love Kemba Walker. I love the way he plays. I love how he played at UConn. I loved him when he was on the Hornets, or should I say the Bobcats, because they were the Bobcats when he was there. That said, he's been struggling from a facilitating standpoint this season. I'm taking the under at minus 105, that he gets less than 4.5 assists in this game. I will take the over on rebounds, however. On the season, he's averaging 3.9. Over the last week, he's averaging 5.3, and in the last game, he had 7. He's set at 3.5 rebounds in this game at minus 125. I'm taking the over. For Jaylen Brown, I'm going to bet on the over for him in points. He has been arguably, he's been their best scorer this season. He's averaging 26. Jason Tatum's averaging 25.6. So he's averaging more points per game, which no one saw coming. Jason Tatum, he was the 3rd overall pick. So was Jaylen Brown. But Jason Tatum gets a lot more media. He gets a lot more coverage, and he gets a lot more hype. That said, I think Jaylen Brown, especially as of late, just look at the last game. In the last game, Tatum scored 6 points. Jaylen Brown scored 25. If Jason Tatum is struggling as much in this game as he has been as of late, slate, you have to expect Jaylen Brown to burden a lot of the scoring load. I'm taking the over for him at 24.5 points, locked in at minus 125. Again, on the season, he's averaging 26. Over the past 30 days, he's averaging 26.2. And in the last game, he had 25. In terms of his assists, I will take the under at minus 110. On the season, he's averaging 3.4, but that is trending down. Maybe it's because he's had to burden more of the scoring load. He's averaging 2.9 over the last 30 days, 2.5 over the last week, and he had 0 assists in the last game when they played the Washington Wizards. I'm taking the under on Jaylen Brown assists at minus 110. I'm taking the over on his rebounds, however, at 5.5, locked in at minus 110. On the season, he's averaging 5.7. Over the last 30 days, he's averaging 5.5. Over the last week, he's averaging 6.5. And in the last game, he had 7. I do think he gets at least 6 rebounds in this game. And you have the same exact value attached to the over as you do on the under. I'm taking the over at minus 110. Now, for Jason Tatum, I'm only taking one single bet for Jason Tatum. And that bet is... Actually, that's false. I'm taking 2 bets for Jason Tatum. The first bet that I'm taking for Jason Tatum is under on points. He's locked in at 25.5 points. Sure, maybe Vegas thinks he has a rebound game after scoring only 6. He's probably mad. He's probably hungry for points after he only scored 6 in the last game. But I don't think he scores 25.5. Over the last week, he's only averaging 9.8 again, or 19.8, and again, he scored 6 in the last game. The under has a value of plus 107. I'm taking the under there. Now let's talk about double-double and triple-double threats. Nikola Jokic is locked in at minus 220 to get a double-double. He has gotten a double-double in 24 out of 25 games this season. You'd be a fool to bet against it at this point in the season. If you bet every single game that Nikola Jokic is going to get a double-double, sure, the value, the reward's not so great at minus 220, but if you did it every game this season, you would have only lost one of those bets once. You would be up big money. You should bet on Nikola Jokic to get a double-double. Michael Porter Jr. is also in the double-double category. I'm not going to bet on him or against him. I don't think he gets a double-double at all, actually, but locked in at minus 770. I wouldn't bet against it because you're getting, pennies on the dollar. It's a terrible value. For Jason Tatum, however, I will bet that he does not get a double-double at minus 400. Why do I say that? Because look at his stats. He's averaging 4.5 assists and 7.1 rebounds. He's not that close to averaging a double-double on the season. I don't think he gets a double-double. I don't think it's relatively close that he would get a double-double. And at minus 400, you put $20 down, you walk away with $25. That is not that bad for something that's pretty much, in my book, guaranteed to happen. He's not going to get a double-double. On to tip-off analysis. Now, you would expect it to be Nikola Jokic against Daniel Theis, but again, Theis is absent with a finger injury. Expect Tristan Thompson to be the tip-off man for the Celtics. Now, in the last 5 games, Theis has taken 4 out of the last 5 tip-offs, and Tristan Thompson has only taken 1, but he lost that tip-off, and he's not that good at the tip-offs. Sure, he does have a big wingspan at 7'1", but it is not like Nikola Jokic's 7'3" wingspan. Now, here's why I'm willing to bet on Nikola Jokic, however. This is what, really puts the nail in the coffin for me to bet against Tristan Thompson on this player tip-off. If you look over their past, head-to-head matchups, Nikola Jokic versus Tristan Thompson, and I had to do some deep research for this. I had to look into Tristan Thompson's Cavs days. I had to look at the play-by-plays, in games in 2018 and 2019 when Tristan Thompson was on the Cavs to find Nikola Jokic versus Tristan Thompson. Now, in the past 3 years, since the beginning of 2018, they've only tipped off against each other 3 times. Now, each of those 3 times, Nikola Jokic beat Tristan Thompson. I think he wins it again. Now, the Nuggets to score first are locked in at minus 106, whereas I almost said the Cleveland Cavaliers because I was talking about Tristan Thompson, whereas the Boston Celtics are locked in at minus 115. So Vegas expects the Celtics to score first, despite the fact that we can be confident they're not going to win the tip-off. The Nuggets are going to have the ball first. I think the Nuggets win. I'm taking the Nuggets at minus 106 to score first. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it up for the show. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned, and let's keep winning some money. Love you all.